All right, we're just letting people join us remotely and start just shortly. Thank you to the folks who are joining us right now. We're expecting about 50 folks today, so we just want to give everyone the opportunity to log in. You're just logging in. We're going to wait another minute or two as other folks log in, just so we can capture as many people as possible for this meeting tonight. But thank you for waiting for us. All right. Well, let's kick this off. First, let me tell you that this meeting is being recorded. It will be posted on our project website. This is the project kickoff design meeting for our Mystic River Outfall and Sewer Separation Project. Before we get into all of this, first let me introduce myself. I'm Jesse Moose. I'm the construction liaison for the city of Somerville. With me tonight is Nick Alekel and Gina Cortese. You'll hear more from them as we progress, but I'd like to have an opportunity for our Ward 4 councillor, Jesse Klingen, to speak a little bit about the project that takes place in his ward. So, Councillor Klingen, we are going to unmute.
Yeah, thank you, Jesse. It's really exciting to be here this evening. Oh, why do I have camera access? No. It's really I'm really happy to be here because, you know, for years now I've been getting calls and emails and talking to folks down on Fellsway West and Wheatland Street as well, about the flooding in their basement. And so this has been a long time coming, and I'm really happy. I'm excited to hear this presentation. And you know, I have a question that can be answered during the presentation or later. I know this isn't the questions, but my main question is this going to impact those folks, and how dramatically will this impact those folks? So that's my question to the presenters and to the teams. But again, to the folks, happy to be here and looking forward to this project happening. Hopefully we can relieve some of your stress with these superstorms. And yeah, so thank you. And I do want to recognize my colleague, Councillor Lashik Wilson, who was out today dropping flyers to remind people about this, or let people know that weren't able to, didn't get an email from me or from the city. So I would like to allow him, if you would indulge, just a quick brief statement. He's also been in those meetings with neighbors and feeling the pain of those people who have had to deal with extreme flooding in their basements because of this outfall.
Absolutely, we can allow Councillor Wilson, a Ward 4 resident, to share his thoughts.
Yeah, thank you both. I appreciate that. Yeah, like Councillor Klingen, you know, I've heard over the years a lot from my friends and neighbors. I live, for those who don't know, I live basically in this relative area that we're talking about. So it's I know the pain, and I'm really hopeful that we can bring some relief to folks who've been experiencing regular flooding of their yards and basements during heavy rainfall events. So eager to hear what's in store and to hear from folks in the area too. Thanks.
Thank you both, and thank you both for being here tonight. If you are just joining us, I just want to repeat that this meeting is being recorded and we posted on our project website, hopefully later this week. We also ask that you reserve asking questions in the chat until the end of the presentation, where we will actually have a full Q&A opportunity. And with that, could I have the next slide, please? So this is our agenda for the evening. We are going to do basically a project introduction. You're going to learn who the design, city staff. Sorry, this is we're going to go over the players. You're going to learn who the city staff are. You can see our faces right now. We're going to talk about the project area and where in Ward 4 this will be. We're going to address the purpose of this project. What are we trying to solve by this large-scale construction project? We'll be looking at also the schedule. You know, we are now in April 2024, but we have many years to go before we even break ground. We will look at goals that we will be trying to accomplish as well, and then also components. We'll touch on next steps for community input in the project, and then once again, we will have a question and answer period at the end. Next slide, please. So you can see our faces right here. I'm Jesse Moose, construction liaison. I work with the infrastructure and asset management department. With us is Gina Cortese. She's our project manager. And Nick Alekla, our construction public information officer. If you ever get a robocall and hear a male voice, that's my buddy Nick. We have two consultants on this project. We have Stantec. We actually have a representative here tonight, Keith Gardner. Stantec is also involved in our Spring Hill project. And Dewberry, who has been done our award-winning citywide drainage and water quality master plan. Next slide, please. So this project is very much Ward 4 heavy. If you look at this map, you can also see on the right-hand side a list of streets that will be affected in the project limits. It also touches on the Mystic River, as well as Foss Park, and, you know, goes through I-93, which involves, you know, working with our partners at DCR and Mass DOT. I'm going to just pause for a second so you guys can take a look at this and just make sure your street is represented. All right, next slide, please. So we have a purpose of this project. You know, as the council were talking about, goal number one is to mitigate known flooding. This is an area that is known to have issues, and we are here today to figure out a long-term plan to these. Number two, we obviously want to improve the water quality in the Mystic River and deal with any sort of CSO issues, and then upgrading existing infrastructure, which is not just water and sewer, but also streets and also green stormwater infrastructure, which we're going to learn about a little bit later. Next slide, please. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our project manager, Gina.
Thanks, Jesse. And thank you all for attending this call. We'll go into more of the details later, but as Jesse mentioned, this is a multi-year project that's only just begun. We brought Stantec and Dewberry on board in the fall of 2023, and we're currently in the middle of our preliminary design process. We anticipate that will take about a year, which will bring us to fall 2024. We'll then complete our final design process and tentatively hope to begin construction around 2026. But as Jesse mentioned, as we'll discuss as we go through this project, there's a lot to be done before then. So right now, we're in preliminary design. What are we doing to do preliminary design? We are performing initial field investigations. We're really building out what the scope of this project will be. Jesse mentioned some of the players and folks that we'll need to coordinate with on this project, and that will be a significant part of this project because there are so many players on this project. We have DOT because of 93. We have DCR because of some of the public spaces that we'll be crossing through. We have Conservation Commission, we have DEP and EPA. It's really, it's going to be a big coordinated effort on this project. And of course, you know, talking to our fellow players that are in the industry, but we want to hear from you all as well. So we'll be soliciting public feedback as we are right now throughout preliminary design. And we'll talk about some more opportunities later on in this presentation. And we're going to continue that as design progresses. So once we move past preliminary design in the fall of this year, we'll move on to final design. And what that means is really iterating on that preliminary design as we continue to get more field data back, as we continue to move through that coordination with government agencies. Another point I want to bring up is permitting. Some of that coordination with the agencies will eventually lead to requiring us to get permits from them. And while we have our timeline and a general understanding of how long that permitting process will take, there's always a little bit of unknown when it comes to permitting. And so it's a long project. We have a lot of work to do in the time that we've built in. And anytime you bring extra players in, you add a little bit more time. So we've considered that, but that will be part of our final design process, as well as, again, continuing to solicit public feedback. And then we are planning to begin construction in 2026 as soon as our final design is complete and permits are received. So project goals. Jesse talked about the purpose of this project a little bit, and we're going to go into some more details on the project goals here. So on this slide, we have a collage of a whole bunch of public public and planning documents and efforts that the city has undertaken in the last several years. And there's more even beyond what's on this slide, where city departments, and we've really tried to take a holistic approach to all of the projects that we're doing, both in engineering and other city departments. So you see things like Vision Zero Somerville, the Climate Forward Action Plan, Urban Forest Management Plan. There's a whole lot of planning that has gone into future projects in the city. And we'll be considering all of those as we go through this project and coordinate with our partners and other city departments. But the one I really want to highlight is what's in the middle, and that's the City Flood Mitigation and Water Quality Master Plan. Jesse touched on it earlier, but it's really the keystone to this project. So when we talk about project-specific goals, I want to first start off again with that master plan. And you can see a little bit, I apologize that it's a little bit small on this slide, but we wanted to include the entire city. You can see where in that water quality master plan, flood mitigation and water quality master plan, I'll refer to it as master plan moving forward. We've identified areas in the city where we know there is flooding. And that's from modeling that we've done, it's from anecdotal evidence, it's from field investigations, but we know, like we've heard, we feel your pain, there is flooding in the city. And so that plan identified both where that flooding is, some of the reasons, some of the causes that we think are leading to that flooding and water quality impairments, and identified projects and priorities that the city can take on to try to alleviate some of those flooding and water quality pressures. So you can see a little bit in the yellow box, you'll highlight this project in the Winter Hill and also 10 Hills area. I just want to highlight that this project was the highest ranking priority project in that master plan. So we really are excited to kick this project off and try to take on some of these challenges. So again, Jesse mentioned some of those project purposes before, and a lot of the project specific goals like flood mitigation and water quality improvements that came out of the master plan are really the key goals that are guiding this project. So we have mitigate flooding, improve water quality, and reduce combined sewer overflows, which I'll talk about briefly in the next couple of slides. And of course, existing utility upgrades while we're doing the work. Let's take advantage of the fact that we're performing construction and tackle as many opportunities for improvements to our infrastructure that we can. And that's both below grade for utility and above grade and surface improvements as well. So let's dig into these project goals a little bit more. Mitigate flooding. We heard it from the counselors. We've heard it from you folks and residents in this project area as we were putting together the master plan. We know that there is flooding in these neighborhoods, and we know that it's because of multiple causes. So some of those might be a little bit more obvious than others. We know water has a tendency to run downhill. So I heard Fellsway West, I heard Wheatland. You're at, towards Foss Park, you're at the bottom of a hill. And so when water pools and gathers, it's going to run downhill, and you're going to see some of that flooding, like you can see in that picture on the left, really focused in on those areas as the water runs down the hill. And then there are also some causes that might not be as obvious to the naked eye. Things like undersized pipes that are below ground, or a lack of catch basins to gather the water in the first place. So I won't go into too much more detail or talk about the real numbers of the flooding that we know exists here, but I would encourage anybody who wants to learn more, in addition to reaching out to us, please do visit our the master plan. There's a link on this website, on this presentation, which will be posted to our website. There's a link on the project website.
Excuse me.
And I see Councillor Klingon has.
Yeah, just real quick. I don't mean to interrupt, but just when you're mentioning websites and stuff, is there like a feedback section where people who are in those flood zones and that want to sort of give feedback and vent on exactly what they're experiencing when they're experiencing it? Is there any type of feedback page on that website?
So we don't have, Jesse, it looks like maybe you might be trying to talk.
So Councilor, we don't have a website directly for this, but there is an email address. If you email flooding@somervillema.gov, you can report flooding issues that you're experiencing. And that goes to most of engineering, actually.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Yeah, she said link, but either way, that's great. Okay, so email to flooding. Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, so definitely thank you, Councilor Klingon. We certainly want to hear from you. The link I'm talking about here is this plan that's really our guiding document for this project, and what kicked the project off to begin with. Has a lot of really great information on volumes and a little bit more numerical if you're into that sort of that sort of project understanding. Highly recommend you go check it out. But flood mitigation, it's a high priority with this project. And we know that without the interventions that we're proposing, that flooding is only going to continue and increase as storms get worse throughout the years. So flood mitigation is a big one. Another one is water quality improvements and CSO reductions. So what's CSO? It's combined sewer overflows. What's a combined sewer overflow? What's a combined sewer? So the city of Somerville, like many older cities in this country, have what's called a combined sewer system. And what that means is that there is essentially one set of pipes for all of the city. So when it rains, any rainwater that is caught in a catch basin goes into the exact same pipe that your sanitary sewer goes to when you flush your toilets or run a shower. Anything that is water that's being wasted from the city is going through the same set of pipes. And so in dry weather conditions, not usually a huge problem. All of that mixes together. It goes to Deer Island and it's treated by the MWRA. In heavy rain events, in the heaviest of rain events, that water mixes, that storm water and that combined sewer and that sanitary sewer, they mix. And if it's a small rain event, they mix, they get sent to Deer Island and they all get treated. But if it's a really heavy rain event, we run out of space in our pipes. And so two things happen. One, the stormwater really has nowhere to go, and we experience flooding because there's nowhere for the stormwater to drain out of. You might see that on the streets, you might see that in your basements, but the water has to go somewhere, and it can't fit into the pipes. And the other thing that happens is what's called this combined sewer overflow. And so in order to alleviate some of that pressure and get some of that water off the streets, that mixed water is then released into a body of water, in this case, the Mystic River. It is disinfected, so it's not completely untreated in this instance, but obviously it has implications for the quality of our waters, and it's something that we are actively working on, both in this project and other projects throughout the city. So ideally, we don't want a combined sewer system. We want to be moving away from that. And what we do is we're creating what's called a separated sewer system. And essentially that's building out a whole separate set of pipes within the city so that your stormwater, when it rains, is sent into one set of pipes, and that goes straight to the river. And your sanitary sewer, when you flush your toilet from your home, goes down a separate set of pipes and goes off to Deer Island. So having a separated sewer system really is the better solution for sewer systems, and it's one that we're working towards, certainly with this project. And we'll make a note, and we'll come back to this when we talk about ways that we can achieve our project goals. Even when we separate our stormwater from our sanitary sewer, we still require water quality interventions. It's not pristine water when, like if it rains and you catch it in a water bucket, it picks up some of the contaminants from the street. And so the rainwater that we're picking up off the street will need to have some water quality interventions before it meets the Mystic River. And that's something that we're hoping to achieve with this project. So we talked about the two kind of heavy hitter goals in this project, which is flood mitigation and water quality improvements, but there are others. We mentioned existing utility upgrades. And so that's not just sewer systems and stormwater systems. It's things like water as well. And our fire pull boxes, it's third-party utilities like gas mains. And just for example, here are some pictures from areas throughout Somerville where you have a water main that's been tuberculated. And so you can see that the capacity in that water main is significantly reduced. You can see on the picture to the left what a broken sewer main looks like. And even if those utilities aren't inherent to the sewer separation that we're taking on in this project, they're things that we want to go ahead and fix. And so while we have the opportunity of doing construction and we're in the neighborhoods, we're going to be able to fix some of these problems as well. And then the last goal, similar to taking advantage of the opportunity to fix existing infrastructure below ground, we want to take the opportunity to fix the surface level infrastructure as well. So anytime that we're doing underground utility work, it's going to require that street level restoration. And that might just mean repaving a street, but it's also an opportunity for us to evaluate really the alternatives that are available to us for how we use our street space, and really to prioritize safer street designs. So those were our project goals, what we're hoping to achieve, but how are we going to get there? So we, again, thinking about those two major project goals, flood mitigation and water quality improvements, here's a whole bunch of opportunities and options for us in our toolbox to achieve those goals. And you'll see a lot of these tools have been used on projects that are nearly complete or underway in other parts of the city. And we're going to evaluate just about all of them for this project, because you can't just pick one tool and expect it to achieve all of the goals that we want. It really needs to be a holistic approach. And so as we go through the next couple of slides, we'll talk through some of the benefits and drawbacks of most of these tools for us. And we're going to start with sewer separation and new outfall, namesake of this project, and really kind of the two biggest tools in our arsenal to achieve our goals. Talked about what a combined sewer is. We talked about the benefits and why we are moving towards a sewer separation in this project. And again, it's simply put, adding in a whole nother set of pipes to take all of our rainwater and all of our stormwater and direct it separately away from our combined sewer. And this is our most effective option for flood mitigation. It takes water off the street. It creates capacity in our sanitary sewer, which otherwise had to share space with rainwater. And it reduces and eliminates CSOs, which improves public health and improves the health of our water bodies. That's sewer separation. We think about a new stormwater outfall, and you really can't have one without the other in this case. Building a new stormwater outfall is really inherent to sewer separation in these neighborhoods, because you can do all of the work to separate the sewers and create new pipes to direct stormwater from the streets, but it has to go somewhere. And in order for it to go somewhere, for it to get to the river, we need an outfall to do that. So again, kind of combined with sewer separation, it's our most effective tool for achieving flood mitigation and reducing CSOs. And really the outfall component is necessary to be able to achieve the sewer separation that we're seeking here. I will add, as you might imagine, there are additional coordination efforts that are needed to put an outfall in. There will certainly be a more significant permitting effort, but these are all things that we are working on in our design to make most efficient. So those are the big two, and certainly the most significant efforts in the project. But there are other relatively easy solutions that we're going to want to implement as well. So one of those is installing new catch basins in the neighborhood. And so this main picture here is from the water quality and flood mitigation master plan. And it shows areas where we've been able to identify simply areas where we don't have enough catch basins. So when it rains, the pipes are big enough, but the inlets to the pipes are not. So all it takes is adding a couple extra catch basins to be able to clear that water off the street faster. So we've identified those areas, highly effective for mitigating flooding in pinpointed areas that we already know about. So this is one of, again, one of our most effective and also one of our, relatively easiest tools to implement in our toolbox here. Couple other options that we have and will continue to investigate through our design phases is increasing pipe sizes. This one's a little bit easier in that we have existing pipe, we know where it is, and we know that there are bottlenecks with the existing pipe sizes that are maybe too small. And so when the pipes are too small, backups happen upstream of those pipes. And so all it takes is increasing the size of that pipe. It increases storage capacity. it increases the ability for those pipes to convey water away from areas that are otherwise flooding quickly. And we're able to, again, sort of target those known bottlenecks simply by increasing the pipe size. And it's a little bit easier to construct as well because we know exactly where the pipe is going, and it already has a home essentially because there's a pipe that's existing there already. Similar to that, we're going to be adding new pipes where additional pipes we'll be adding to areas where pipes don't exist already, adding in storage capacity, and again, an additional way to remove water from roads and get it into our system sooner. And this is kind of an asterisk on green infrastructure because not only is it somewhat effective for flood mitigation, but it is highly effective for water quality improvements. Before I get a little bit past that, what is green infrastructure? They're built systems that mimic the natural environment. So you typically see that in terms of, like you see in this picture that was installed in our as part of our Spring Hill sewer separation project. You see plants and you see soils that are able to help infiltrate and with that treat the water that's being diverted off of the streets and into the sewer system. So there's really a lot of benefits. Highly effective for water quality improvements, effective for flood mitigation, and it impacts the holistic view of the streetscape. So what is green infrastructure? You may have seen this in the Spring Hill project or on Somerville Ave, those projects that we've completed. A bioretention basin, a stormwater tree trench, where again, you really see that visual of what that green infrastructure looks like. But there are plenty of other options as well, beyond what's shown on this page, where you have things like permeable pavement, where if you didn't look closely enough, you'd think it's just pavement, but it's providing additional benefit hydraulically to the area. Same thing with a subsurface infiltration trench. Looks like a sidewalk, but it's providing a lot of work under the surface that you don't see. And I talked about the additional benefits of green infrastructure, but there's more than just the hydraulic benefits and the benefits to water quality improvements. But visually and aesthetically, it's nice to look at when you have this new greenery. You are increasing the tree canopy in Somerville, which is a known goal for the city. You have the opportunity to install native plants. You develop urban cooling. So really green infrastructure, again, it has additional benefits when you think of it in the perspective of a holistic streetscape improvement lens. So those were our tools for flood mitigation and water quality improvements. We've of course talked about our need and desire to repair and replace existing utilities. We know that there are a lot of older utilities in Somerville that have done an amazing job for us so far. They've functioned well beyond their expected lifespan, but it's time that we have the opportunity to make some improvements to them. So as I said before, we'll be focusing on sewer, on water, on fire pull boxes throughout the project area. But I just want to highlight that not all rehabilitation of utilities involves digging a hole in the street. So we have techniques at our disposal, like trenchless pipelining and epoxy coating of manholes, like you see in this picture, where we're able to improve upon the existing infrastructure without quite as much of a disturbance to the street. I'll also make note of the fact that we have been able to already coordinate with National Grid, and we are working with them to make sure that they're able to provide gas upgrades in this neighborhood as well, concurrent to this project. That was for existing utilities below grade. We want to think about utilities and the surface improvements that we're able to make above grade as well. So you've seen these these interventions on other projects in the city, and there's something that we're going to look at with this project as well. So you've seen things like speed humps, like crosswalks mid-block or raised, adding curb extensions. But the main goal we're asking ourselves as a design team while we are moving forward with this design and thinking about streetscapes is how can we make our neighborhoods safer? We have the opportunity with this project to take a swing at some of the streets in these project areas, and we want to take advantage of that opportunity. So Again, that's evaluating alternatives to how we use our street space. And really, again, it's doing our best to improve the safe passageway of all road users in this project area. So those are the tools. That's how we're going to create this project that we're going to be implementing as the project moves on. Where are we now? What are our next steps? You're at our community meeting. We want to hear from you. The next opportunity to do so and to speak with us directly in person is the mayor. Mayor Ballantyne has started up a spring meetup series called Slice of the City for each ward. So on next Thursday, May 2nd, from 5 to 7, several of us from the city, both on this call and in various other departments, will be available at the Healy School playground to talk through projects, not just this one in engineering, but sort of the state of the ward. You can come talk to us, sort of an open house. You can also grab a slice of pizza. We will also be having an in-person workshop in June of 2024. And we'll be having the next of these community meetings like this one in September, after we've been able to progress a little bit further on the design. So we talked about it before. Please do visit our project website. That's linked on this page and with a QR code. You can stay up to date with design progress, as well as get updates on community outreach events, sign up for alerts, email alerts. And we also are available directly. So you see both all of my, Jesse, Nick's contact information. If you have further questions about this project, please do reach out. Please visit our project website. We want to hear from you. Speaking of wanting to hear from you, be transitioning into our question and answers portion of the night. So I'll transition back over to Jesse to moderate that portion.
Thank you, Gina. That's excellent. Thank you for taking us through the presentation of what we're going to be looking at in the design for the next 2 years and before we get to construction. So, like Gina said, it is now 6:32. We're on our question and answer period. What I'd like you to do is raise your hand. Nick will then unmute you. We will invite you into the conversation, and hopefully we'll be able to answer your question. So if anyone would like to ask a question, now is the time. We'll start with Councilor Wilson.
Yeah, thanks. One question that I know a lot of folks here are likely to have is, do we have a plan to deal with the flooding that's happening basically in private areas? We're talking basically there's a huge, basically the backyards. If you look at a map, it's a big giant block basically that's bounded by Broadway to the south, Fellsway west to the east, Jake Street to the north, and Wheatland to the west. And a huge amount of the flooding, you see the videos and photos, and I see it personally, is happening basically in the big adjoining backyards back there. And are we going to be able to do anything to drain water out of there, given that it's a big plot of private land, basically?
Yeah, I mean, that is a good question, and obviously an issue we've been having for years, and not just in Ward 4, but throughout the city. As Gina's saying, we're going to increase capacity in the streets, and that will help with water runoff from these homes, but we're not going to be entering private property to do upgrades. Gina, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you covered it, Jesse. We won't be in private property, but all of the work that we are doing on public rights of way will impact the entire property. It's difficult to piecemeal it. Water doesn't follow property lines, right? So by being able to more quickly remove the water from streets, we're able to kind of increase that capacity and allow that water to move elsewhere into the project areas that we are working on. That's all that to say is, if you have a big pit in your yard, not saying anyone here does, but water, we can't direct water away from that if there's a big indent, but it's all connected. And certainly there will be improvements to private property, even if not directly as part of this project.
And one thing to add to that is we do have guidelines now for if someone wants to do work on their backyard, they are required to get a permit through the engineering office called a site construction permit, or go through a review where we look for them to add, pervious pavement and other resources to deal with any sort of long-term flooding. Probably not the best answer, Councilor Wilson, but that is the answer.
It's an answer. I appreciate that. The second question I had was, I know Fellsway West is scheduled for some speed humps here. We've seen Jake Street has gotten speed humps, and I know as a city, we're trying to figure out how that works with resurfacing. I'm guessing that presents even additional difficulties if you're talking about digging up the street for subsurface work, like we're talking about here. I guess more a comment than a question, but I guess that's going to be a potential difficulty, I would imagine, with Fellsway West getting speed humps here before this project is breaking ground. Am I right?
There's yes, yes and no. Certainly we will coordinate to hopefully avoid any sort of, competing construction. All that to say, we are years out from construction on this project. And so the benefits by adding speed humps now, I think we agree are worth it in this neighborhood. And as we go through and do our streetscape design, we will be looking at streets like Fellsway West, among others, to see, do we replace the speed humps that are there now? Can we avoid impacting them based on the infrastructure work that we'll be doing below grade? Is it worth adding more? These are all questions that we'll tackle as we further our design.
Thank you, Councilor Wilson. We will now go to Sandy Gray.
Okay, I'm unmuted.
Hi, Sandy.
So I represent the church, Self-Realization Fellowship Church, that is between Fellsway West and Wheatland. And it's a large property. I guess it's probably 4 house lots. We've had extreme flooding in our basement. I was down there taking videos of it. So we do have a water problem. And I was wondering, I just heard it said that there is no plan to deal with the piping underneath private property. It will only be, is that true? Or I guess my question is, how can we meet with you so that you could explore what our particular situation is? Or isn't that going to be done?
Sure. Sandy, I think what the answer was that we gave Councilor Wilson is that we're talking about large areas of pavement. So like backyards that are fully paved or parking lots. And that is what's causing water not having a place to go. And that's what's leading to, basements being flooded. If you have a large parking lot and you'd like to look at ways to improve the stormwater mitigation, you can definitely meet with the engineering department and we can look at ways to do that. Not us, actually, not we have a whole permitting team.
Yeah, we don't have a parking lot per se. We just have yards, know, and the flooding is in the yards, but basically it's in the basement of the church. It was almost like a whitewater river flowing through the basement. We have French drains. I don't know what our problem is and what and how our problem, if we have one, how that dovetails or works with the city's problem in terms of the pipes underneath the ground that take water away from our property.
Sandy, why don't you shoot us an email and we can kind of connect you with the right people and just see if there is something more that can be done outside of this project.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So in other words, this project doesn't impact particularly our individual situation. It's more the roads, the increased catch basins and so forth like that.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in here and I want to be clear kind of on 2 parts. Obviously, there's been a lot of flooding that we see. We see flooding on streets and we see it in basements. And there's kind of two main reasons that we see flooding in basements, but one of them is high groundwater level. And all of the infrastructure work on public rights of way in the world isn't going to change the fact that we are near a river.
Yeah.
And so part of our field investigations that we're doing right now is to figure out exactly where that groundwater level is, and what sort of implementation we can use and interventions we can use, acknowledging where that groundwater level is. But more so than that, all of our large scale infrastructure that, while it exists within the public right of way, will impact the entire project area, whether it's public, private, or something else. Removing the water that's ponding on our streets and getting that out of the surface and into our system and away from this neighborhood area will impact everywhere. And so there will be benefits, even if we're not digging in your backyard, there will be benefits across the project area beyond where exactly we're putting those pipes into the ground.
Okay. So there's nothing we can do individually to help you learn about our situation at this point. We're just going to stay tuned.
Yeah, certainly stay tuned. And Sandy, like Jesse said, if you want to shoot us an email, I'd be happy to speak with you more directly about your particular situation.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Sure.
All right, well, thank you, Sandy. Up next is Zarita. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Hi, thank you so much. So we're very excited about this project. We bought this 31 Grand Street 5 years ago. Loved Somerville. I lived in Somerville for a long time. And within a month of buying the property, it flooded. We couldn't have tenants. It's been a nightmare. We spent tons of money, thousands and thousands of dollars. So what I am concerned is that we had an engineer that came and saved the house. But there's a lot of work that was done. So when you do work on the street, how is it going to affect the work that was done, that we spent tons of money, that right now things have been okay for the last year and a half. And so we'd like to coordinate so that whatever you do doesn't affect us, and what we did privately, and how can we coordinate efforts so we all can be safe and enjoy the city.
Sure. That's a great question. As construction actually begins, which we are many years away at this point, we're your contacts. If you have any questions, Gina's the project manager, you reach out to her.
I send an email, so that's good. I send an email, so I would love to be involved. Mm-hmm.
Great. And, we're doing work on Grant Street. We will obviously, have one-on-one conversations with any resident who has questions.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. This is exciting.
Great. We think so too. Thank you, Zarita. Up next is Corey Hips. Hey, Corey.
Hello.
Hi.
So few questions if I have time for them. First question is, what kind of modeling are you using in terms of future population growth and or stormwater growth? I know I'm from Chicago originally, and they built TARP 2 capacity, and then very shortly found that it wasn't big enough, based upon climate change and so on. So how far out are you looking in terms of the water and population growth?
Yeah, thanks, Corey. So part of our modeling that was done as part of the master plan efforts, as well as we have a very large effort ongoing right now as a coordination with MWRA and Cambridge for CSO long-term planning, has spent a lot of time discussing what is the best scenario to use for future storm events. I can't speak directly to population growth. I think given how built out we are in Somerville, that doesn't change. Building more houses will mostly be up and not out. And so that doesn't change the outlook of the amount of stormwater as much as increasing rain event and rain conditions in the future. We are certainly looking towards 30 years out and beyond as part of this project. And we're still, I don't think we've identified exactly the design year that we're working towards, but there have been a lot of conversations, and I'd be happy if you send us an email or reach out directly to kind of show you those modeling and that reporting. But be rest assured, we absolutely are thinking towards the future and not just the flooding that we see currently.
Okay. My reason for asking about population growth was if you're splitting sewer and you I was part of a meeting a few weeks ago that was about increasing density along Broadway, for example. So if you had hundreds and thousands of units of housing, just didn't know how that would end up factoring in.
Yeah. That's a good point, Corey. So one of the main benefits of sewer separation is that by removing stormwater from our sanitary pipes is we restore all of that capacity. And that's something that we work with the MWRA, who essentially owns our sanitary sewer once that waste, once it leaves the city pipes. And so they maintain pretty strict limits on what sort of capacity is needed in pipes to allow development within the city. So that's also something that we certainly consider. And this project really only serves to help that.
And just to add on that as an example, the Somerville Ave Utility Streetscape Improvement Project, which began in 2018, that was in part because of the US2 project with the 100-unit building that we obviously need to increase the size of the sewer. So that was hand in hand with that. So we are kind of thinking on that line.
Another question is, back when I was a resident of Cambridge, we were talking about municipal broadband, and one of the things that had come up was Somerville had a plan that as you were doing sewer, you were adding at least conduit that could be used for future upgrades like that. Is that still part of the plan or not really?
That's, Corey, I'm not sure exactly where you heard that, but that's never been something that we've been a part of with our sewer separation projects.
Okay, because that had come up as something that was being done at the same time as they were.
Yeah, I mean, there, definitely, Xfinity, it does do work around the city, but it's not a kind of hand in hand because we're doing this, they're doing that kind of thing.
Okay. All right, that's all I had for now.
All right, well, thank you, Corey, for being here tonight. Up next is Herbert.
Hello. So I just posted a few notes on the chat, specifically about some examples or some suggestions, specifically about the catch basins, and really it's something that we have as an additional problem here from being in front of the park. That also the trash collection. Perhaps we could intensify the amount of trash. Trash containers in the park to also help with that. We do see very often trash just littered in the streets, and that's something that it's of concern that could be related to the directives of the project.
Certainly, living in a city, there's always going to be more trash than we can handle at one time. We do have a catch basin cleaning program. I'm not sure if you've adopted a catch basin yet. I own 2 on my street, but it is a way that residents are able to get involved and make sure our catch basins are clear to prevent any sort of backup or flooding.
Yeah.
And I'll just add, since you mentioned Foss Park, Herbert, Foss Park is not city owned. It is owned by DCR, and so we are working with them as part of this project, and certainly are collaborating with them as design progresses. And we can communicate that feedback about trash as well. But just want to be clear, we don't control what happens on the park. We can certainly try to work with them as best we can to get solutions that work for everyone, including neighbors to the park. But we don't know that.
And that's a great point. I didn't know that, but we still think that there are specific spots. I would say we have a daycare that is on the very corner of the street. That's where usually a lot of people get wait for the kids, and that's where a lot of littering happens. So it might be interesting to think about placement of a trash can on close to that spot, to specific spots where there's an everyday high circulation of people.
Yeah, it's a great point.
So those are everyone who has their hand raised at the moment. Anyone else have any questions for us tonight? Councillor Klingon. Are you able to unmute yourself?
I am now, yeah. So yeah, thank you. And I just wanted to kind of bring it back. Great questions for everybody, but I wanted to bring it back to what I see as the sort of two pressure points. One is the backing up of people's, of the pipes, the ones that go to people's homes, the backing up of sewage and so on into the properties. Will this, so my understanding, this will address that for sure, to some degree?
To some degree, we don't have the final plans yet, and so we haven't been able to model exactly what this project will look like. I think I'll reiterate, any work that we do to increase capacity within the rights of way in this neighborhood will impact the entirety of the neighborhood. I can't say for certain which houses that will impact by how much. Certainly not right now, but it will help project-wide for sure.
Yeah, no, I understand. I just meant the instances of that happening. I don't think there's a ton of houses that are happening on, but there are, there's enough. And then the other was like just sort of the thing that Councilor Wilson brought up is I understand that this won't actually, this is, those are issues on private property. That might be a side discussion me and him could have about like a, similar to the rodent mitigation, maybe if we identify the really high instances of like the high flood zones, maybe a program where at least we could go in and kind of just give some pointers and say, you have this. So that'd be another conversation, but I do hear you on that. This wouldn't necessarily impact that, but this will hopefully bring down just the amount of water that's flowing through the street. So that in and of itself is going to be huge. But I do see that there are other issues that some have brought up. But like I said, mainly my hope for this and concern was the really extreme cases of people's basements backing up. I know that can come from a few different sources, as was mentioned. Like it can come from maybe even just groundwater, like seepage into the basement, just because of where we're located. So understanding that, I just think it's important to note that this will have some impact on the people whose properties basements are being flooded, specifically from the pipe, like the city pipes, and the water coming through those pipes into the homeowner pipes. I hope it'll ease some of that. That's one of the worst situations that I can see is when there's raw sewage in people's basements, and they have to deal with that. As the one commenter said, it costs her thousands of dollars, and so. But yeah, still, it sounds like hopefully it's going to have an impact on all these things. So thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Klingon. I'll just take an opportunity for the folks who are on the line who have experienced some of those backups. There are things like backflow preventers that can be installed, and even for folks who are experiencing flooding that is coming in through groundwater, not through a direct pipe, but through the groundwater outside of basement foundations. there is waterproofing that can be done. Certainly, while we are working towards construction, in some years, there are some interim measures that can be taken as well.
All right, Gina. Up next, let's hear from Edgar.
Hi there.
Hi.
Tell me, where is the new outfall to the Mystic River most likely to be located? Is it going to be off of Shore Drive, near Assembly Row, near Draw 7 Park, or that is something really not determined yet?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Edgar, and thanks for using most likely, because that is certainly something that we are still working through in preliminary design right now. Most likely, the area that we are seeking to go through is through Shore Drive and on the, we'll call it west side of the bridge, the Fellsway Bridge there. Where the native pollinator garden is, it's right around that area that we would be outletting to the Mystic River. That we expect to.
That is right in front of my house, because I'm at 147 Shore Drive, right across from the pollinators that aren't pollinating very much. Will that mean really complete disruption of traffic because of construction along Shore Drive at that area?
Again, hard to say exactly without moving further forward in design, but this is a construction project. It's a large scale construction project, and anywhere that we are installing pipe, and certainly where we're installing the outfall, there will be construction impacts. Of course, we will do our best to mitigate those and communicate with the residents, especially those who are directly adjacent to the work. But there will be some disruption. Yes.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Edgar. Let's hear from David Bannister. David, are you able to unmute yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Do you think there'll be an opportunity for residents to tie into any work that you guys are doing? I live on Fellsway West, and say if you're coming down the road installing new pipes, do you think there'd be an opportunity for residents to tie in somehow? Like, I pump water out of my backyard into the street. I don't know if we'd be able to tie into any work that's going on.
I would say in the short term, the current policy for Somerville is to actually encourage folks to do what you are doing as opposed to tying in. We want the water to be able to go to the street and either filter down through any pervious areas or then enter the system through storm drains, catch basins on the streets. Not to say that that policy can't change wholesale across the city, but that's currently where we're at now.
Okay, yeah, it's intense, like dragging up basically a fire hose to pump water out of your backyard or in your basement every time it rains.
Especially if it's in the middle of the night and you can't monitor it.
Yeah, it's intense. But okay, we'll cross that bridge, I guess, when we get there.
Yeah.
Thank you, David. Let's hear again from Councilor Wilson.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to jump in on that point and also on what Councilor Klingon mentioned. I would just encourage creativity whenever possible in terms of this private property flooding, and to, potentially go back and revisit city policy in terms of allowing private property owners to connect. Just given, you think about which is worse, running a virtual fire hose across the sidewalk and the accessibility concerns that raises, and putting that on property owners to have to be on top of that and set that up every time there's a rain event, versus something that might be a little better for everyone, because that water is going to find its way out there one way or another, and I'd rather see us get proactive about just getting real about that fact and thinking about how we can maybe revisit that policy. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Wilson. Obviously, that's a much bigger topic to have with, director of water and sewer, director of engineering, but it's a good comment. Let's go back to Corey Hips.
All right. So kind of along that vein is a question of, has the city have any requirements around permeability of driveways, whether they're being newly constructed and or parking, if it's being newly constructed or redone?
Yes, great question. Engineering has a required site construction permit that for any sort of driveway, parking lot, that they have to go through lengthy review process, providing documents to us that, we asked, I believe, at least 10% permittable. There's regulations on our website if you want to take a look at it. But this
Any
is
chance
only
that would be raised?
Hmm?
Any chance that would be raised?
So it's only in situations when someone's redoing their driveway. It's
Mhm.
not, we're not going around everyone's driveway and saying, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this.
I understand that, but at some point I'll have to redo the driveway for, my condominium complex, right? So
Mhm.
if I can be permitted to do 10% and that's cheaper, or if I'm required to do something that's 20 or 30% and that's more expensive, but that's what the requirement is, I'd have to abide by the requirement. And that would help reduce some of the surface shedding.
So you're asking if there's some sort of financial incentive for residents to do this? Is that what you're asking, Corey?
Yeah, as they're redoing it, or a requirement that they do it
So,
as by basically
Jesse,
increasing.
this is Council Klinger. Just to jump in. So, depending on the size of your condo complex, we actually require you to. You have a few different options. One is completely permeable, or two is you have to drop a tank, a retention tank in the ground. That all depends on the size. So yeah, we have numerous measures in terms of water, keeping water on property.
But to speak to what Corey's saying, we do not have a incentive program or rebate program for that. But when you are looking to do this work, please reach out to the engineering department and we can guide you on the permit.
Okay. And second question I had is, it was mentioned that you were looking at combining the rebuild of the street with the Vision Zero type things like daylighting, bump outs, raised intersections. My understanding is you just have standards about that, but are you looking for additional feedback on that or no?
So we have standards, which, we have like basically a tool book of, things that we use for examples. You can look at our Somerville Ave project, our Spring Hill project that's currently in construction. But this is something where we look to the residents for as we progress in design. So stay tuned and please participate.
All right.
So right now it is 7:03. David Banter, do you have another question for us? Or is your hand still just raised? We can unmute you and find out.
I think I had my hand raised by accident, but I guess I'd like to, of that last question that guy Jim was talking about, we've been here for 16 years and our flooding has gotten worse as all the buildings around us have kind of been redone and backyards been paved over. I think it's kind of unfortunate. Like when we got here, the houses around us all had yards and now they just all have driveways. And that's really increased our flooding.
Yeah, I mean, that has been a reality with the development, but that is one of the reasons that we've created this stormwater ordinance that goes to people who want to redo their backyards. So because of work that was done that was not properly permitted, we've now created ordinances that forces them to get proper permits, go through a review of engineering, also zoning for certain instances. And if they don't do it correctly, we can cite them.
But I guess that's why it would be great too if the city could consider that people like us who are pumping water into the street with fire hoses, maybe finding a way to help us out a little bit extra.
Sure. I mean, that's a great conversation to have maybe with your city councilor and see if it's something that, you know, budget season's right around the corner. But as of now, we don't have that.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, it is 7:05, the last call for questions. You know, as Gina mentioned, we will actually be in person at the Healy School on early May. This is kind of replacing community meetings that were done the last year or two, and for us old timers, Resistat meetings. So this is actually kind of cool. It's going to be outdoors in the park, and you have much more opportunity to interact with city staff and not just sit through a PowerPoint presentation. What is it, May 2nd? So Gene and I will be there. You can come say hi. I'm gonna go. So any last questions? All right. Well, thank you all for attending tonight. This will be posted on our website. Our emails are also available if you have any questions to follow up with. Once again, thank you for attending, and go Celtics. Have a nice night, everyone.
Thanks all.